So the High Court really we knew was coming. We're still kind of looking at it to see what the ramifications are, but it seems to me that basically now the ruling that has been made today will enable Rishi Sunak's government to deport people to Rwanda and have them make their claims for asylum actually in Rwanda. Is that right?
That, and like you, I've only seen the headlines, really. But yes, that appears to be the case, and it's to be welcomed. Of course it's to be welcomed. I could also say that the High Court is really stating the obvious, something that we knew all along, but no matter. Let's not be churlish. No. I think that it's the right decision. It's really now a matter of what will the government do and what will the lawyers do. Frankly, I wouldn't hold my breath that these deportations, these removals, will actually start anytime soon. But at least it's another step in the right direction, a significant step.
Well, when Rishi Sunak got up last week and made his kind of 5-point plan, one point of which was to say anyone who comes here illegally will not be allowed to stay here at any point. They'll never be able to be granted the right to remain. However, it was pointed out at the time that would need legislation in order to make that happen. But I wonder whether this will let them actually take some of the new arrivals and say, right, you cannot claim asylum here, but if you want to claim asylum in this country, you get on this plane, you go to Rwanda, you do it there.
Yeah, possibly. But what I would also say, much as I welcomed a lot of what Rishi Sunak said last week, the fact is that I recall Boris Johnson also saying that if you arrive here illegally, you'll be sent back.
Yes.
Well, what happened to that commitment? However, I will say that Rishi Sunak has finally shown the sort of resolve from number 10, and that's where it was lacking before. Whatever Priti Patel was doing, frankly, she seldom had support from number 10. Suella Braverman now, who I think has got the right ideas, will at least have support from number 10. What policy eventually ends up coming into reality, I'm not sure, but certainly the signs are reasonable now that there's going to be effort made to solve this problem in the Channel. I think so.
And I think also what's good is that Rishi Sunak clearly had put quite a lot of work into it and quite a lot of thought had gone into those 5 points that he made. Whereas with Boris, you would always go, he's just kind of come up with his plan 5 minutes before he said it and just said, well, this is what we're going to do. But actually with Rishi Sunak, it seemed as though he does have a point of sort of progress, if you like. So first he's going to introduce this idea that you can't come here illegally and expect to stay, that if you want to apply for asylum, you're going to have to do it in Rwanda now, because they did say they were going to reinforce the Rwanda flights, didn't they? And also they're going to change the law on this business of being trafficked and the Slavery Act.
Yeah, I gather that he's been talking to Theresa May, who introduced the Modern Slavery Act, of course. And there are a lot of good bits in that. It's just the way it's being used or abused that is the problem now. And I think that the government has finally seen sense and is going to address that. I mean, other things that he said last week that I think were helpful were, for example, the additional resources that are now going to be placed at the disposal of those who are dealing with the problem. And that is really quite significant, the numbers of people dealing with it, the speed with which decisions are going to be made. Incidentally, I hope that those decisions are not going to become a box-ticking exercise so that anyone who's applied just to get rid of them, get them out of the system, is going to be given leave to remain or granted asylum. I hope that doesn't happen. So long as it doesn't happen, I think it's a good idea to deal with them quickly and then remove them. And today's decision will help in that direction.
And also it's a recognition, it seems to me, of a kind of a global problem that Britain is part of and that Britain will have to do something about. Whereas before there's been this sense that, oh, maybe it will just go away. You know, like we managed to get rid of people coming on lorries. That was stopped because of higher security at Calais, higher security at all of the kind of the various jumping on points, if you like. But then they all moved onto the boats because it seemed that was a very easy way to get here, and it still is. But if they can make it clear to those people traffickers and to people coming that if you do come here, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to be able to stay, I think they'll stop coming.
Mike, that's home of common sense, so I'm expecting that sort of comment. It is. It's absolutely that which drives those coming across the channel. The fact that they know, having arrived here, there's very little chance of them ever being removed. And guess what? A lot of those coming over have already applied for asylum and been rejected.
Yes.
Throughout Europe. In 2019, something like 1 in 6 of those who came over had already applied and been rejected.
Yeah.
Well, 1 in 6 of 45,000 suggests that the number is very high.
Yes.
So it's no good saying that France or whoever take in more. They don't. People arrive there. But in fact, when they consider applications for asylum, by and large, it's something like 20% of those who apply in France are rejected at first instance.
Yes.
Sorry.
And then where do they go?
80%.
They come here, presumably.
Yeah. But overall, the EU, it's 39% who are allowed.
Yeah.
With us, it's 70%, 75%.
Yeah.
So double the EU rate and more than 3 times the French rate for allowing.
And we're a much smaller country as well, aren't we? Which is what has caused an awful lot of problems.
We are something like 3 times as crowded as France, frankly.
Absolutely right. So as far as the Labour Party's response and the lawyers' response, we await what they're going to say. The UN hasn't said anything yet either. But Yvette Cooper is the kind of go-to person. They seem to be saying already, I don't know how they've worked this out, that if the Labour government was to be the next government, that she would be the next Home Secretary. I don't know who's worked that out, but I guess if that's what she says, that's what we are supposed to believe. She's kind of hinted that she would like to see migration numbers coming down. But then she's hidden behind the fact that they're higher because of Ukraine and because of Hong Kong.
That's part of it. But bearing in mind that we had over 500,000 net migration and Hong Kong, Ukraine, Afghanistan, that was a proportion, I think around 140,000. That still leaves something like 1/3 net migration. That's totally unsustainable.
Right.
And we only have to look back to the census result just a few weeks ago, which effectively showed that over 20 years we'd had an increase of 10 million people in our population, and in fact it was something like 7 or 8 million was the result of immigration. We can't continue that way.
No.
We can't have that number of people adding to our population annually. It's a nonsense.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, talking to and listening to quite a lot of the NHS workers, the people who represent the Royal College of Nursing, people who are in the front line of medicine are saying, well, the thing is, you know, we've now, you might say the government have given us more money, but we've got more people to look after. Now, when you say to them, well, why do you think that is? Nobody ever goes, well, it's because we've got 10 million extra people living here. And I'm not saying it's only the fault of people who have come to live here, but you can't pretend that it hasn't had a massive effect on the NHS.
No, that's exactly it. Happening at a time when the numbers of people being trained and the number of doctors, nurses in the NHS has, over a lot of that period, been falling. So, of course, you're going to have pressures if you've got people arriving at the rate that they are. But the other thing that we often hear is that we've got to have these young people coming in. And most of them, certainly across the channel, something like 70% are young men.
Yes.
They say, yeah, we've got to have them because we've got an ageing population. Well, if you're having people to stay in this country, for goodness sake, as I can testify and have said before on this programme, even young migrants age. So all you're doing is, in fact, adding to the future problem, which is going to be much more significant than it is even
also,
now.
if you're allowing people to come into this country as young men, but you're not letting them work, what are they doing? You know, They probably are working. They're just not working in what you and I would call the regular economy. They're working in a different economy, which is inevitably the black economy. It might not be illegal work they're doing, but it's certainly under the table cash only money.
Yeah, on that point, Mike. And now there's a lot of people saying, well, why don't we allow people who arrive here illegally, if they're in the system and have been here for 6 months, a year, whatever, let's allow them to work.
Yeah.
I would counsel caution.
Yes.
Because all that is going to do is send the message that, don't worry, come in, keep your head down for 6 months and you'll be allowed to work, and then they'll never remove you.
And then they'll never find you as well. That's the other thing, isn't it?
Well, the problem is that even when... The main problem is that we've stopped looking, frankly. And even when we do find people, we're doing very little about it.
Right.
And we've even got serious criminals, frankly, who are being set free because we can't remove them.
Yes.
That's wrong.
It is.
And most people in this country would say that's wrong.
Of course they would, because the country is being taken advantage of, and I think that is what most people are fed up with, and we don't want to do that anymore. But the news here breaking, Lord Justice Lewis, Mr Justice Swift at the High Court have ruled government plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda are lawful. So we'll wait, I guess, from later on today to get a statement from either Rishi Sunak or from Suella Braverman. Alp, it's certainly a step in the right direction, I think, isn't it?
Step in the right direction, welcome it, but let's wait and see what happens now.
OK. Alp Mehmet, Chair of Migration Watch, thank you very much indeed.